And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Modern commercial jets can achieve fuel consumption rates of around 0.02 to 0.03 gallons per passenger mile. While this may not seem impressive per mile, when divided among the hundreds of passengers, the fuel efficiency becomes comparable to, or even better than, many forms of ground transportation. Let us return to the nation-to-nation panel discussion, Energizing the Economy.
I think there's some broad trends here, whether it is aviation efficiencies. Planes are getting more and more efficient. If you've been in some of the newer jets that are in service now that Air Canada uses, they are significantly lighter. They go further on less fuel. Are they going to be electrified anytime soon? I know that, Harbour Air, you probably heard a couple of years ago, they got a float plane that runs on electric, and there was a lot of excitement. It was a global news story. People from all over the world were reading this story from Vancouver, Canada, about the amazing electric plane, and I would love to encourage that, and if it works, more of it. From what I understand, it's not getting the amount of service hours that the hype suggested would happen. So, this will take more time before we see electric helicopters. Now, at the same time, hey, these drones you can get at Best Buy, it's amazing how they progress. Maybe it's going to happen. So, I hope so, but you also have to deal with what's achievable today. 15-minute cities, I think there is a lot of pressure on municipal governments to, ban natural gas or to come up with slogans that drive policies. Like in Vancouver, where I live, they have the official slogan, it's called the greenest city, and I'm not sure what that refers to. There's a lot of foliage and trees and stuff, so it might be from that. It's not from their climate policy because their emissions have gone up. Well, there's measures that have come down. They've tried really hard for many years to enact policies. I haven't heard 15-minute city as a City of Vancouver thing, but I think Edmonton is talking about, was it Edmonton in the news this week about 15-minute city? It's a slogan, it's a concept, it's something to maybe think about to adapt. So I don't think we should just throw that out, but at the same time, if it feels to you like that's some bureaucrat trying to force you into a way of life that you don't think suits how you actually live or what your family's needs are, you might, to Barry's point, you might actually feel resentful that someone is trying to force that down your throat. So, I think because municipal government is the most accessible form of government, there you see those folks at the grocery store and post office. You don't see MPs or MLAs every day. Municipal government is so close to the services that are delivered that you consume every day, and that's why I think slogans can be. So I don't know. I would be a little more. I would be chill about slogans from government. It's a way of expressing things they're hearing, but at the same time, government shouldn't be doctrinaire, because you're going to have the reverse impact of people just saying not interested, and then you're actually moving backward.
I've heard two definitions, and I first heard about it when I was actually touring around BC when I actually ran to be the leader of the BC Liberals. Everybody remember that? No? I was talking to a mayor from outside Vancouver, and he didn't say 15-minute city per se. What he said was, we're trying to find a way to make sure that all the services are within 15 minutes. That's what he said. And it was going to be a problem for him because he was a bedroom community for Vancouver. I never even heard that term before. So all these crazy thoughts started going through my. But what bedroom community meant was a lot of the people in his community lived in his community but drove to North Vancouver for work every day. They spent like an hour and a half in traffic in the morning, afternoon. So what they were trying to do is saying, look, we got to find an economy. We got to find all the medical services here. We got to do everything within the confines of our city so we're not traveling so much and we can reduce emissions. That was the first time I heard it. But then after that, I never heard anything else. Then I heard this idea that somehow we're going to be forced to live within the boundaries that you can't travel past 15 minutes. you have to stay within your boundaries. I don't see any rationale to that. I don't see how you could do that realistically and even legally in terms of the Charter of Rights for people to. I think it's a real vague concept, and I don't think it's based in reality, unless I'm wrong. Unless there's another concept up there I haven't been privy to.
That's pretty much what I figured it was. It's about transportation and designing more of the future communities where you have that control, not just things that are already built, keeping that in mind. I don't think it's a bad concept to keep in mind, because you look at a lot of the suburban sprawl, it's like, wow, you've got masses. Look at, fly over Calgary or Edmonton, the sprawling cities that have no natural geographic boundaries. You look down when you're taking off from Calgary Airport, and it's like, wow, where's the services in that community? You have to drive 20 minutes to just go to the 7-Eleven. So I think there's some sense to it, but it's not always practical.
Not for us. I mean, we got to drive from Kitimat to Terrace just to visit a hospital. Sometimes we got to go to Prince George, Victoria. I mean, centralizing medical services here in BC, you can't change that, especially when we've got doctor shortages all over BC. You can't change that. But yeah, that's. I don't think I have a definitive answer for 15-minute cities.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Do we need nuclear energy to stop climate change? More and more voices from science, environmental activists, and the press have been saying so in recent years. But this comes as a shock to those who are fighting against nuclear energy and the problems that come with it. So, who's right? Well, it's complicated. To slow rapid climate change, the world needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero. In 2018, 3/4 of global emissions were released through energy production, namely by burning fossil fuels. Energy is a broad term that describes all sorts of stuff, from moving things and people around, to putting things big and small together, or heating our homes. Currently, 84% of the world's primary energy comes from fossil fuels, 33% from oil, 27% from coal, and 24% from gas. Around 10% of the global oil supply is just used to burn in boilers to make our homes cozy and warm. Only about 16% of global energy is from low-emission sources, almost 7% from hydroelectric, 5% from solar, wind, bioenergy, wave, tidal and geothermal combined, and about 4% from nuclear. So we pretty much rely on coal, oil and gas to keep our civilization going, which means it's actually very hard to transition away from them. To have a chance of escaping fossil fuels without throwing humanity back into the Stone Age, one of the most impactful things we can do is to electrify as many sectors as possible.
Thank you for staying with us. It is an international scientific consensus that, in order to avert the worst impacts of climate change and preserve the livable planet, global temperature increase needs to be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Currently, the Earth is already about 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer than it was in the late 1800s, and emissions continue to rise. Let us return to the conversation with Stuart.
We're the ones that are telling our politicians we want no emissions. We're the ones saying that we got to cut down pollution. Are also saying we don't want any blackouts. I don't want to be sitting at home at 7 o'clock and find out that my TV shuts down because of no power.
Can't watch hockey?
Can't watch a hockey game. It has to be defendable. And by the way, if you look at a natural gas bill with all those taxes, especially in Kitimat and Terrace, it's got to be affordable. You have described the trilemma. And so what's the answer? I'll tell you one thing before I turn it over to these two guys. Nobody is doing it better than Canada. I guarantee you. Yes, our energy use is going up, but not compared to India, not compared to China, not compared to the European Union. United States, who is now energy independent and exporting energy all over the world, we are beating ourselves up too much over this. And it's not your politicians that are paying the price, it's us. No matter what you hear about a clean future, everything's going to be rosy. The costs that you're seeing right now are only going to increase if we don't actually take a good, realistic look at what energy policy means to us.
In the U.S., I think they're building on the slate right now something like $1.7 trillion of planned nuclear. So they're clearly in favor of it. France, 70% of their electricity comes from nuclear. And I haven't heard that storage is a major issue there. I don't know anything about that issue in France, so it's not a very noisy one. This here that I'm holding, that water bottle, if you, from the time you were born till you passed on, all the electricity that you consumed in your life, one person, came from nuclear, the waste would be about this much, one person. So it's a very compact and manageable amount. Now, I don't think we should maybe spend too much time on this because it's still at this point a far-fetched idea for British Columbia as a major thing, but it's a fascinating one to talk about. And I think the shorter term, things that are happening, knowing that in the world right now there is a great trend, this energy addition that's happening. How do we do it? Well, through these parts, you've got energy infrastructure that is creating choice in countries that don't have choices, that desperately want to lower their emissions by using less coal and having Canadian LNG. So that's happening, and it's clearly going to be for the next at least 2 decades or more, something that's very large. So I think we should be looking, as well as having the enjoyment of discussing the possibilities of new things, also looking at what's actually happening today that is part of managing this addition, so that the emissions part of that addition is on a declining path.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Nation and Nation has consistently taken pride in fostering an open dialogue, which typically denotes a conversation that is candid, sincere, and unrestricted, allowing participants to express their thoughts and opinions freely without the fear of being judged or facing repercussions. Let us return to the conversation with Barry.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this discussion. I'm pleased to see people engaged in this. I think we need to have more of this, not less. One of the things we called for at the Energy Futures Institute, we put a report in July. You can look it up on our website. But I think overarching, I want more transparency. We have an honest question about, are we importing or exporting? Why is that hard to know? What the heck's going on? I've had to work really hard in the last year to put these numbers together. I've put a lot of horsepower into this. My kids can attest to this because I put a lot of my time that I should have been spending with them into figuring out what the heck's happening in British Columbia. It shouldn't be that hard. But our elected leaders, and this is not any one political party I'm naming, it's just a culture in government that you don't really have a right to know. We'll get around to telling you when we feel like it. And it really pisses me off. This is personal, because I can go online right now with my phone and I could tell you to the megawatt how much electricity in Alberta is being generated from solar, from wind, from their little bit of hydro that they have, how much they're importing from Montana, how much they're getting from BC or more likely selling to us. But I can't tell you today what's happening in British Columbia. You don't know. I don't know. There are some people that know, but they're not letting you know. And I find that extremely condescending, and I'm offended by it. And I think you should be too, because it's our right to know what's happening so that we can have a meaningful and informed discussion. Let's get the facts on the table, and then we can make some more rational decisions, and not just emotional decisions, but some more practical, rational decisions. So one of the things we called for is let's have a real-time dashboard. You could go on your website, go on a website. A grade 12 student could probably put this together for BC Hydro in an afternoon, if not then a weekend. This is easily done, but they don't want to do it. They don't want all of us to know how much electricity is being generated right now at the WAC Bennett Dam. During that cold spell we had in January, our 700 megawatts of installed wind power that we currently have in BC, was it producing anything? No one's talking. Was it performing or wasn't it? Was it helpful or not? I don't know. You don't know. We should know. We know in Alberta it went to zero. During the coldest day of the year, January, it was at zero. It's not the fault of wind power, it's just how it is. If the weather turned out that way, it was not windy. But people need to know so you can then make informed decisions about what do we need for backup. How much will it cost to build the backup for the wind power? Again, in BC, we have some advantages. We have large-scale hydro, so we can flex and respond quickly. You're right, within seconds. That is the unique advantage of large-scale hydro. Nuclear doesn't respond as quickly. Natural gas doesn't respond as quickly. Natural gas would take 20 minutes to go from cold start to full output. Coal, an hour. Wind, well, you have to wait for the weather to make up its mind. Solar, you have to hope it's sunny at the moment. Often the coldest time of the night, it's not that sunny, right? But with large hydro, within seconds of you making the decision, the operator, dispatching that, spin the turbine, the electrons are there. But we need to know. And so it would cost the government virtually nothing, except a bit of ego and a loss of control, because they would not control the information anymore. Let us see what's really happening with our system, because we own it and we're asked to pay for it. We deserve to know. So that's my one ask. And by the way, there is one political party that has picked up word for word our recommendation, and it's the Green Party of BC picked up that recommendation that there should be a real-time dashboard that all British Columbians can go and see what's really happening with our electrical system, like you can in California, Washington State, Ontario, or Alberta or Saskatchewan, but not here in British Columbia.
Yeah, I can't follow that one up. It's a common sense recommendation, and hopefully it'll happen at some point, because pretty much anywhere, any jurisdiction does what they do in Alberta, you can see what's going on, but not BC. If I could just use my last moments to put in a shameless plug for myself. Can I do that? Well, not for me, for my new podcast called Power Struggle. Powerstruggle.ca, we'll take you right there. It's on this whole thing that we're talking about, the energy trilemma, about the energy transition, transformation, addition, whatever that's going on, what you want to call it. Barry's been a guest. I found out, by the way, that he was raised in Kitimat. Did you know that? This guy? Yeah.
Yay, Kitimat.
Yeah, Kitimat. Yeah. And I hope to have Ellis on. And actually, as I look around the room, like half of the people here, you'd be great guests. Anyways, we launched it 2 weeks ago, and I hope it's of some use, because these are actually really, in all seriousness, these are super important questions. I feel that the dialogue out there is unsatisfactory in depth and honesty, and I'm going to change that. So I hope you will listen.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
In 1985, significant worldwide occurrences encompassed the Geneva Summit involved the United States and Soviet Union, a catastrophic earthquake in Mexico City, the finding of the Titanic wreck, and the Live Aid concerts aimed at addressing famine in Ethiopia. In this final segment of Open Connection, we open our archives to 1985 with Fred Weber.
August 1st marked a very special day for the station. Thursday was the 25th anniversary of Skeena Broadcasters. We managed to catch up with company president Fred Weber long enough to recap the past 25 years and also look ahead to the next 25.
25 years ago, starting a radio station was quite different than starting one now. Because 25 years ago, if you had an idea and $5,000, you could start a radio station. Now they tell me, and I haven't started a radio station recently, but they tell me now that for any less than $250,000, you have no hope of getting started.
What was it like 25 years ago to be in the broadcasting business?
Well, of course, 25 years ago, you're talking about fairly modern times in the broadcast business. I started in the broadcast business more than 40 years ago. 25 years ago, broadcasting was much the same as today, except for the way we program. And some of the listeners, I think, can relate to this. We used to play music in the old days, Now we have this sort of rock stuff that goes like this that I don't understand. But But broadcasting basically has been going for a long, long time and hasn't changed that much. I think if you had to put one change to it, it would be that programming now is done in very little pieces. It's just a very short duration program because we assume that people's intelligence will only hold a minute now. Where in the old days, everything was half an hour. A newscast, an average newscast was 15 minutes.
Is shorter better? Is broadcasting better now than it was 25, 35 years ago? Or if you had a chance, would you go back and do it all again the way it was?
If I had a chance, and I still believe that many of the things that we did 25 years ago were better broadcasting than they are today. But maybe that's why I have to hire managers that won't do what I say, because I'd likely be out of business. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't like broadcasting as it's done today nearly as much as I like broadcasting as it was done 20 years ago.
What are we seeing there?
Yes, that's the way the building looked some years after we had rebuilt it, because the television studio is already visible in the back of it. Originally, of course, that didn't exist. I might say that there were tears in a few eyes, including Mark Van Hertz, when she saw this house being bulldozed down, because we'd been in quite a while.
Group shot here again in front of the original CFTK building.
Yeah, a number of people, all right. Dave Estikel, who was one that was here practically from day one, started up on the mountain. John Dando, I see, who's still here, and John's hair is down to his shoulders. I guess that's, I think it's a little shorter now.
Much.
And I see Barb Barneswell in that group, Katie McEwen.
And being a reporter, this looks very familiar to me, a newsroom and a reporter.
Yes, this is a reporter, all right. This is Keith Tutt, who was extremely well known for news in the area.
And this is where we're broadcasting from today, although it looks much different and much bigger, but there it is originally.
Oh, that's when it was still Overweighty Foods, yes. Well, what happened on that is when we decided we had to have more space for television, it was pretty well impossible to build on the same location and still keep on the air. And when Overweighty moved out, this seemed to be a logical deal, so we finished Overweighty store into a television and radio station, moved over, and then we're able to bulldoze down the old house, and it now turns into what is presently the Manpower.
The next 25 years for Skinner Broadcasters?
Well, that's going to be in hands such as yours, not mine. That's a cinch. I'm not going to be in it for another 25 years, but broadcasting is going to remain. It'll change. I mean, now, as you know, we're in AM and FM and television and cable, and it will change. And I look for great changes in cable in the next few years. I think we'll have multiple channels, 30 channels at least, that everybody will have. And I think our pricing, because regulations are changing, our pricing will get more in line with the lower mainland, because the satellite doesn't really care whether it's looking at Vancouver or Terrace. So as soon as we can get some regulations out of Ottawa, I think this is all going to be possible. So I think we're still going to be a viable broadcasting operation. It may not be in the same form as it is today, but it'll be there.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.